Welcome everyone to the deep dive. We're really thrilled to have you with us today because we've got a fascinating one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want you to start by just, imagining a puzzle. You've got this massive box sitting on your table, and it's filled with millions of these perfectly cut pieces.
Right.
But every time you try to actually put them together to form a picture, nothing fits. Like the edges clash, the colors don't align. It's just a mess. And that is essentially what Matt Crocker was staring at back in 2023.
Oh, yeah, when he took over.
Exactly. He takes over as the sporting director of U.S. Soccer, and he decides to bring in this sports data firm, the 21st Group, to answer what should be a very simple baseline question.
Mm-hmm.
He asked them, how many top 50 players in the world has the United States produced in the last 10 years? And I mean, keep in mind, we're talking about a nation that just utterly dominates the Olympics.
Right. I mean, track and field,
Yeah.
swim.
Basketball, American football. We produce absolute world-class generational stars across the board. So what do you think the answer the data firm came back with was?
Well, it's zero.
It's zero, not five, not one, exactly zero.
It's a completely jarring statistic, especially when you consider the raw athletic infrastructure and just the sheer population size of the United States.
Yeah.
When you see a zero in a data set like that, it tells you immediately that you aren't dealing with some statistical anomaly. You are dealing with a systemic failure.
The total breakdown.
Exactly. Something is just fundamentally structurally misaligned at the very base of the sport.
Which brings us to the core mission of our deep dive today. And I want to declare this right out of the gate so there is zero confusion for you listening as we get into the weeds of this. The U.S. failure in men's soccer is absolutely not a talent issue. It is a feature of a broken exclusionary product design.
I love that framing because that is crucial. Today, we're analyzing some really comprehensive research drawn from Tifo Football, and it's supported by extensive data from Project Play and U.S. Soccer itself.
Mm-hmm.
And we are basically going to trace the path of a dollar bill through the American youth soccer system, because if you really want to understand why the U.S. men's team struggles on the global stage, you have to understand how money, and specifically wealthy parental influence, completely dictates player development in this country.
Right, because if talent isn't the problem, we have to look at the barriers that are, keeping that raw, brilliant athletic talent off the pitch in the first place.
Right.
And if you're a parent listening to this, or really anyone who has observed American suburban culture over the last 20 years, you already know about the youth travel sports boom.
Oh, it's everywhere. Baseball, lacrosse, volleyball.
It's a whole industry.
Mm-hmm.
But in youth soccer, this operates as a strict pay-to-play model.
Mm-hmm.
And, putting on my antitrust economist hat here for a second, I look at this system and I see an artificial economic moat.
An artificial moat.
Exactly. You have this castle, right? And the castle represents elite technical development. But instead of a drawbridge built on merit and actual athletic ability, there is this massive financial moat designed to basically keep 90% of the population out.
And the depth of that moat is what truly separates the U.S. from the rest of the global soccer community.
How so?
Well, to access high-level coaching as a child in America, you are basically forced to join a private, for-profit club. And sure, club systems exist all over the world, but the huge difference is that in, Europe or South America, youth development is heavily subsidized by the professional clubs themselves or by the national federations.
Because they see it as an investment.
Exactly. They view developing these kids as an investment in their future labor force. But in the U.S., the entire financial burden is placed squarely on the shoulders of the parents.
And we aren't talking about, buying a $50 pair of cleats and paying for some post-game orange slices here.
No, no, no.
Let's walk through the actual timeline of an American family. At age 6, maybe you pay a couple $100s for a local recreational league. But by age 8 or 9, the club taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, your kid has potential. They need to join our travel team.
And boom, the price jumps.
Suddenly, the fee is $3,000. By age 12, it's a quote-unquote national showcase team. Now you're looking at standard travel team fees upwards of $10,000 a year.
That's just wild.
And that's before you even factor in the auxiliary costs, the gas, the hotel rooms, flights for out-of-state tournaments, dining out every weekend. Over a 10-year youth career, a family could easily sink $80,000 to $100,000 into one child's soccer development.
Yeah, I mean, remember the Zlatan Ibrahimovic
Oh,
story?
yes, tell them about that.
So Zlatan, legendary Swedish striker, he did this interview revealing that when he was playing for the LA Galaxy, he actually looked into putting his two kids into a local academy. And the annual fee they quoted him was $35,000 per child.
Per child. I
Yeah.
mean, that is insane.
Right. Even someone who has played at the highest levels of European football, earning millions of dollars, recognized how completely unhinged that pricing model is.
It's just disconnected from reality.
Completely. And the real-world consequence of this financial structure is the creation of what we call football deserts.
Football deserts.
Yeah. Think about the demographics that traditionally dominate this sport globally. The greatest players often emerge from working-class communities, immigrant neighborhoods, favelas, estates where a deep generational love for the game is practically woven into the culture.
Absolutely.
But the American pay-to-play system completely and ruthlessly prices those exact communities out of the sport.
Because it's not optimizing for talent. It's optimizing for parental wealth. Yeah. It's just a filtering mechanism. And, it's not even just the direct club fees creating these deserts. It's the physical infrastructure of American suburbia.
Right, the geography of it all.
Yeah, because a lot of these elite mega clubs, they build their sprawling field complexes way out in the distant suburbs because land is cheaper.
Which means
the sport is only accessible if a family owns a reliable vehicle and has a parent with the white-collar job flexibility to, drive an hour each way on a Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m.
Yeah, and the Project Play report puts hard data behind that exact observation. They found that 86% of players from high-income families are regularly driven to their practices.
86%.
But when you look at players from low-income families, that number plummets to just 21%.
Wow. So the geographic and financial barriers just totally compound each other?
They do. And Matt Crocker actually pointed this out to The Athletic. He noted that a young boy in England is statistically never more than 13 minutes away from a completely free elite development program run by highly qualified coaches.
13 minutes.
13 minutes. Whereas in the U.S., achieving that same level of coaching requires an immense and honestly often ruinous family sacrifice. I mean, look at Clint Dempsey. Arguably one of the greatest, most creative players the U.S. has ever produced. He grew up in a trailer park in Texas, and he has spoken openly about how his family had to go into serious debt. They were relying on the financial help of teammates' parents just to afford to let him play.
Yeah, and Tim Howard, our legendary goalkeeper, admitted the exact same thing. He said he only made it through the youth system because he got lucky with a handful of coaches who, recognized his raw talent and were willing to quietly look the other way when it came time to collect his club dues.
Which forces you to wonder, right?
Exactly. How many Clint Dempseys and Tim Howards are we completely missing out on right now simply because they don't have a coach willing to cook the books for them?
It's just an incalculable loss of talent. But, we really need to look at the downstream effects of this money, too.
What do you mean?
Well, it's one thing to say the system is too expensive, but we have to understand how this massive influx of parental capital fundamentally alters the way the game is actually played on the pitch.
Right. Because when a family drops $10,000 or $15,000 a year on a youth sport, they no longer view it as recreation.
No, it's an investment.
They want a return on investment. They want an ROI. And in the context of American youth sports, that ROI is usually envisioned as like a college scholarship, or at the very least, immense social prestige within their suburban community.
Yeah.
Like, parents demand value for their money.
And that demand for value creates this intense parental pressure cooker. The club directors and the coaches, they are hyper aware of this. They have to constantly validate those exorbitant fees just to keep the tuition checks clearing.
So how do they validate them?
The only way to prove your value in the American youth sports market is to win, and win immediately. Shan Eubanks, a former U.S. youth coach, points out that clubs validate their fees by enrolling in these high-profile, out-of-state travel tournaments. The goal is entirely focused on boosting their national rankings on various youth soccer websites.
Because a higher ranking means...
Exactly. It gives the club the leverage to charge the next batch of parents even more money.
And that focus on immediate winning creates such a toxic environment, especially when you look at how these tournaments are actually structured.
Oh, it's brutal.
These aren't carefully paced developmental leagues. The standard American travel tournament is a grueling honestly borderline abusive physical gauntlet. You have kids playing 3, sometimes 4, full-length games packed into a single 36-hour weekend window.
Which is biologically reckless. I mean, professional adult players in the English Premier League complain about muscle fatigue when they have to play 2 matches in a single week.
And they have world-class physical therapy.
Right. And we are asking 12-year-olds to play 4 matches in 2 days. By the time you get to a semifinal on a Sunday afternoon, these young players are completely depleted, their glycogen stores are gone, their decision-making is compromised, and the injury risk just skyrockets.
So it's not even about soccer anymore at that point.
Exactly. Because of this structural setup, these Sunday games are never won by the team with the highest technical quality or the most brilliant tactical passing. They are won by the squad with the deepest roster of athletes who can just survive the physical attrition.
Wow. So if your livelihood as a youth coach depends on winning a 36-hour endurance contest to keep your wealthy parents happy and the funding secure, your recruitment strategy changes completely.
100%.
You aren't looking for the undersized, highly technical midfielder who needs time to develop their spatial awareness and passing vision. You're looking for the kid who went through puberty at age 12.
That is the tragic flaw of the ROI model. Because winning right now is the only metric of success, coaches overwhelmingly favor early blooming children, kids who are taller, faster, and stronger than everyone else their age.
Because they can just bulldoze the other kids.
Right. These early bloomers can dominate a youth game simply by using pace, physicality, and raw athleticism to run right through exhausted defenders. Meanwhile, those slower developing players, the late bloomers who historically in countries like Spain or Argentina are nurtured and go on to become the most brilliant technical playmakers in the world, they are routinely pushed off the top squads in America and just left behind.
And we have to consider the psychological toll this takes on the kids themselves, you know. When meritocracy is replaced by a parent's wallet and the entire culture is obsessed with immediate physical dominance over long-term skill, the joy of a game just evaporates.
It really does.
A massive survey found that when young players were asked what they disliked most about playing soccer, 32% of them specifically cited the financial expense.
That's heartbreaking.
Children as young as 10 are feeling the anxiety of what their hobby is costing their families.
And the fallout from that pressure is entirely visible in the attrition rates. According to U.S. Soccer's own internal reports, almost half of all kids playing soccer between the ages of 9 and 11 will quit the sport entirely within a single year.
Half of them.
Yeah. And by age 14, a staggering 70% of children have walked away from the game.
70%. And honestly, that number makes even more sense when you uncover the darkest secret of this revenue model.
Oh, this part is just rough.
Because these clubs rely so heavily on parental fees to keep their lights on, there are documented instances where kids whose parents bring more money to the club, like maybe they sponsor the team jackets or make a large end-of-year donation, those kids are selected for the elite A squads over poorer, significantly more talented children, simply to ensure that revenue stream doesn't leave for a rival club.
It is the ultimate corruption of sporting integrity. When the primary objective of a youth club shifts from player development to just basic financial survival, the actual sport becomes a secondary concern.
Okay, but if you're a parent listening to this, you're probably wondering why someone at U.S. Soccer doesn't just step in and fix it.
Right, like why not just intervene?
Yeah, if the senior figures at the Federation know this hyper-focus on early physical dominance is destroying our technical development, why not just mandate a nationwide change? Issue a directive that bans these 4-game tournament weekends and enforces a unified technical curriculum.
Seems simple enough.
Right. Looking at it like a system architect, it seems like you should just be able to push a software update to the whole network.
Right, well, the problem with that approach is that the infrastructure of American soccer isn't a single network. To use your system architect framing, it is a completely fragmented, broken API.
Let's ground that metaphor because it's vital. If you think about trying to run an operating system update on your smartphone, it works because Apple or Android controls the ecosystem. But imagine if every single app on your phone was built by a different rogue developer using a different coding language, and none of them cared what the main operating system wanted them to do. That is the U.S. Youth Soccer Association.
It is a staggering bureaucracy. You have the U.S. Youth Soccer Association acting as like the largest sanctioning body. But underneath them, power is fractured into 54 different state associations.
54.
And it gets even more complicated because massive states like California, Texas, New York, and Pennsylvania, they're carved up even further into separate regional fiefdoms. So like Northern California and Southern California operate completely independently of one another.
And we have to explain how these state associations actually make their money, because that reveals exactly why they refuse to change.
Oh, well, the money.
These 54 entities survive by charging fees at every possible intersection. They charge a fee to print a player registration card. They charge a massive sanctioning fee to allow a club to host one of those abusive weekend tournaments. They charge fees for coaching licenses.
Each of these state associations is essentially a for-profit micromonopoly. They have their own distinct season schedules, their own leadership boards, and their own isolated revenue streams.
So they have no reason to listen to the top.
Exactly. It is structurally impossible for U.S. soccer to push a unified national development curriculum because they're dealing with dozens of competing businesses. These state associations have zero financial incentive to adopt a national strategy. A unified system would eliminate the redundancies that allow them to collect all those middleman fees from wealthy suburban parents.
Wait, hold on, though. I have to jump in here, because we're painting an entirely bleak, inescapable picture of the youth club scene. But MLS academies have been around for a while now.
Sure.
Major League Soccer launched these professional academies in the mid-2000s, and they are completely free for the players. Aren't they stepping in to subsidize youth development the exact same way European professional clubs do? Like, it seems like this free professional layer at the top solves the exact problem we were talking about.
No, absolutely not. I have to push back aggressively on that optimism because you cannot patch a fundamentally broken foundational system by just slapping a free layer at the very top.
Really? But if it's free, shouldn't be capturing all that lost talent from the working class communities?
In theory, yes. In practice, no. Listen to Anthony Hudson. He's the former assistant coach for the U.S. men's national team. He spoke to The Guardian recently and pointed out that MLS academies aren't actually sending scouts deep into the football deserts to find raw, unpolished street talent.
So where are they looking?
Instead, they are simply scouting the elite pay-to-play clubs. They are taking the players who could afford the $10,000 travel fees in the first place.
Wow. So the MLS Academy is just skimming the top off the wealthy system.
Precisely. They just end up poaching the wealthy kids who have already benefited from 10 years of expensive private coaching. It's an entirely exclusionary pipeline. Basically, it functions as credential laundering for the elite.
Credential laundering. Oh, that is a brilliant and devastating way to put it.
Right.
Because, think about it. A kid shows up at an MLS Academy tryout at age 15, makes the team, and the academy gets to issue a press release saying, look, we developed this local player for free.
Exactly.
But they completely obscure the $80,000 his parents spent over the previous decade to get his technical skills proficient enough to pass that academy tryout.
It's all a mirage. And this dynamic creates a vicious cycle that actually makes the pay-to-play problem even worse.
How does it make it worse?
Well, we have to look at something called solidarity payments or training compensation. In the rest of the global soccer market, when a massive professional club like Real Madrid or Manchester City signs a player away from a tiny local youth club, international rules dictate that the professional club must pay a financial reward back to that small club for doing the hard work of early development.
Which creates a beautiful incentive structure.
Yeah.
It financially motivates small, local clubs to focus deeply on individual player development rather than just winning meaningless under-12 tournaments, because producing one professional player could fund their club for a decade.
Yes. But in the United States, those solidarity payments historically do not exist. And the why behind that is fascinating. It basically comes down to strict U.S. antitrust laws and child labor regulation.
Like the Frazier v. MLS lawsuit in the 90s.
Exactly. Following that lawsuit, and combined with how U.S. law views amateur youth athletes, children cannot be treated as economic assets bound to a club. A youth club in America doesn't hold the economic registration rights to a 12-year-old the way a club in Europe does. Therefore, when an MLS academy wants a player, they just take them.
So the local club gets absolutely zero financial compensation for developing that talent.
Nothing. Zero.
Yeah.
So picture the reality for that local youth club. They just lost their absolute best player to the free MLS Academy. They received no solidarity payment, but they still have field rentals to pay, they have coaches' salaries to cover, and insurance premiums to meet. What is their only available recourse?
Oh, man. They are forced to raise the enrollment fees on the remaining players just to survive.
Exactly. The local club jacks up their prices, making the pay-to-play cycle even more expensive for the next generation, and digging the artificial economic moat even deeper. The MLS Academy system, which was intended to bypass the pay-to-play model, actively accelerates its inflation.
It is literally a snake eating its own tail.
It really is.
We've traced the dollar bill today, right? From the desperate travel team tournaments where coaches prioritize early puberty over technical skill, up through the fragmented protectionist state associations acting as broken APIs, right into the MLS academies that basically launder the credentials of the wealthy.
Yeah, that's the pipeline.
The result is identical at every single level. The raw athletic talent is out there in the United States, but our infrastructure is actively choosing not to see it.
And without serious foundational systemic changes to tear down these socioeconomic barriers at the grassroots level, the production line of talent to the U.S. senior team will remain broken. I mean, the United States is co-hosting the 2026 World Cup. There will be massive hype, billion-dollar marketing campaigns, and packed stadiums across the country. But none of that spectacle fixes the root of the problem.
No, it doesn't. Unless something fundamentally disrupts this financial model, all the marketing in the world won't move the needle on producing a top 50 global player.
Not at all.
It really leaves you with one final undeniable question to mull over as you watch the national team play, or even just watch kids practice at your local park. If you build a global sport behind a suburban paywall, are you trying to win a World Cup, or are you just running a country club?